Missed holidays, appointments and homecomings. Over 1,000 people were unable to catch their flight from Dublin Airport yesterday as huge queues formed due to a lack of security staff. Today, apologies and analysis followed the chaos.
I think we have to hold our hands up. We did get it badly wrong over the weekend. What we're doing today is looking very closely at what happened. We want to make sure it doesn't happen again. We have a very busy week ahead, very busy bank holiday weekend coming up. We want to get it right. We owe it to our passengers, so hopefully we can rectify that in the days ahead.
The DAA laid off 1,000 staff during the pandemic, and lengthy queues were a feature earlier on this year. But the issue seemed to have been somewhat resolved after it deployed office workers and began a recruitment process to hire more than 300 new staff. 45,000 people were due to fly through the airport yesterday, and it sparked concerns that if the DAA was unable to cope with this many, it won't be able to cope with the coming June bank holiday weekend. Ryanair saying it's time to call in the army.
You need people quickly. You need to have security clearance, and obviously all the army are security cleared. They could be managing queues, they could be releasing other staff, the people who do the more specialised jobs on the X-ray machines. They could be doing the secondary searches and that as well.
But the Transport Minister says this has been considered and dismissed before.
It was felt then, and this is an operational issue for both the airport and the army, that actually wouldn't deliver. I don't believe that the army coming in this instance would overcome the immediate problem. There are other ways that the airport will have to look to make sure they do have the capacity to cope.
Minister Ryan and Minister of State with responsibility for international transport Hildegard Naughton met with the DAA this morning to discuss the matter, instructing them to report back by tomorrow morning on solutions ahead of this weekend, with daily meetings to be held until the problems are resolved. Nicole Gernan, Virgin Media News.
Right, let's get the latest now from Dublin Airport and go to our news correspondent Richard Chambers, who's there for us this evening. So Richard, real pressure now on the DAA to act and to act quickly.
Certainly is, Colette. The DAA is very much on the clock. The government taking a very dim view of its explanations for the weekend debacle at Dublin Airport and its reasoning behind why it hasn't put in place the staffing or the resources in place to prevent this from happening in the first place. There was no warning, the government says, that this would happen last weekend, just particularly yesterday in particular. Basically, there's some ministers now who have the view that the human resourcing issue in Dublin Airport in terms of the contracts which are being offered to the security staff simply aren't good enough in a competitive marketplace, particularly after Dublin Airport let go of so many staff during the pandemic. Micheál Martin, the Taoiseach, speaking earlier on in Brussels, says this is a situation which the DAA itself has to resolve.
It is unacceptable what has happened. It's not good enough, and people should not be treated in that way. And there will be daily meetings between the Department of Transport and the DEA, and the government is looking for a very clear plan to ensure that this type of thing doesn't happen again, and that whatever has to be done now is done to improve the operational efficiency of Dublin Airport.
Well, many ministers also talking about the fact that this was something which was flagged well in advance. Back in March, we had a situation where there were also lengthy queues as a result of a shortfall in staff at the security checkpoints at Dublin Airport. Dublin Airport Authority assuring the government that they would not see a repeat of these scenes and that everything was progressing very well as we headed towards the summer. Well, obviously not so if you take last weekend, for example, and now looking towards the June bank holiday weekend, there is a growing concern, not just amongst government and passengers who will be passing through Dublin Airport, but amongst the business community as well, about the national embarrassment that this has been described as because of the scenes over the weekend. So while Dublin Airport Authority has until tomorrow morning to put up a report of how it intends to avoid lengthy queues at Dublin Airport for the bank holiday weekend, there is some concern that there may not be avoiding any of the chaos that we did see last weekend as we head towards next weekend.